They are rot given form, disease hammered into armor. The Death Guard's Plague Marines are not soldiers. They are contagion made flesh, trudging through battlefields where the air itself dies around them. Their laughter echoes through gas masks, wet and muffled, like a joke told at the world's funeral. When they march, crops wither, machines corrode, and even the dead refuse to rest. They do not charge. They advance slowly, inevitably, like rust spreading across steel. This is the horror of the Death Guard, the plague that laughs back. Welcome to our Halloween edition of Brush and Blood, where the minis ooze, the stories fester, and even the paint smells a little wrong. Tonight, we paint the Plague Marines champions of rot, icons of endurance, and proof that in the grim darkness of the far future, the only thing more patient than death is decay itself.
Welcome back to Brush and Blood, where Warhammer meets the real world. Tonight, the air is thick with rot and whispers. Paint jars rattle like coffins, and the smell of wet earth and decay feels almost alive. Because this isn't just another episode, it's the heart of our Halloween arc. We're painting the Death Guard Plague Marines Nurgle's blessed warriors of pestilence and endurance. As I work on these twisted figures, we'll explore how disease became devotion, how corruption turned into faith, and why some warriors believe that eternity is best spent rotting. Disclaimer: this episode may contain descriptions of decay, plague, and other grim horrors, all part of the Warhammer universe's grotesque beauty. So grab your brush, brace your stomach, and remember, what you paint tonight might just stare back.
Let's get it on!
Who are the Plague Marines? Plague Marines were once noble space marines of the Death Guard Legion, champions of the Imperium during the Great Crusade. But their faith was betrayed. During the Horus Heresy, their Primarch Mortarion and his first captain Typhus led them into damnation. Trapped within the warp for what felt like centuries, they begged for deliverance as their ships filled with the stench of rot and death. It was Nurgle, the plague god, who answered. His gifts came not as mercy, but as mutation. Their bodies bloated, ruptured, and fused with their armor until decay became their existence. Their armor, once the pride of imperial craftsmanship, is now swollen with boils and split open by flesh that will not die. Their lungs wheeze clouds of contagion, their bellies churn with parasites, and their bolters drip with toxins that hiss as they touch the air. Unlike other Chaos Marines, the Plague Marines do not fear pain or death. They cannot die in any way that matters. Their wounds burst, ooze, and heal again, each scar birthing new life for Nurgle's endless garden. They are not fast. They do not need to be. Bullets sink into their bloated bodies and vanish into pus. Blades strike and shatter on rusted ceramite harder than steel. Where they march, air fouls, crops rot, and metal corrodes, their presence alone is a contagion, a living curse. Each squad is a warband of walking plagues, every warrior a petri dish of unique diseases gifted personally by Nurgle. Plague Marines don't just kill their enemies. They infect the battlefield itself, so that victory festers long after the fighting ends. They embody inevitability. They do not charge, they do not break. They advance, and whatever stands before them drowns in plague. Fun facts and lore: Plague Marines are blessed or cursed with unnatural resilience. Their organs don't just endure decay, they thrive in it. Lungs filled with maggots still breathe, hearts half-rotted still beat. Even their blood is alive, a crawling ecosystem of disease that heals wounds faster than fire can burn them. To kill a Plague Marine is to try and kill the concept of rot itself. Their weapons are no less blasphemous. Once Imperial bolt guns, they've become plague spitters and rusted launchers, firing shells that burst not with shrapnel, but with infection. Each detonation releases clouds of spores that eat through armor and skin alike. When a Plague Marine reloads, it's not with ammo, it's with contagion. Every mark on their armor tells a story. They carry Nurgle's sigils like trophies, each boil, scar, and mutation a sacred badge of honor. To them, pain is prayer, and infection is grace. When a new sore blossoms across their flesh, they thank their god for his generosity. Even their smell carries power, a miasma of decay so potent it can corrode metal and turn the air itself toxic. Entire worlds have fallen without a single shot fired, simply because Plague Marines walked their streets. Tabletop tie-in. On the board, Plague Marines aren't about speed or flash, they're anchors. They hold the line like a wall of rusted steel and refuse to fall, no matter how much fire you pour into them. They spread contagion, choke objectives, and drag entire armies into wars of attrition they can't win. When you face them, it isn't about who hits harder, it's about who can still stand when everything else is rotting away. Because that's what the Death Guard are, the embodiment of patience, endurance, and corruption. They don't just fight for victory, they fight to make sure the battlefield never heals. Lore Vignette: The Fall of Sindral Hive. Picture this. The streets of Sindral Hive choke with smoke and fire. The Planetary Defense Force fires volleys into the dark, las guns blazing, their beams cutting through the haze like dying stars. Through the smoke, the Plague Marines appear step by step, slow as glaciers. Bolts tear into their ranks, explosions rip bodies apart. But they never fall. They just keep coming. One Marine, his jaw hanging loose from a rusted helm, fires a bolt around that bursts into a cloud of plague flies. Another drags a chain of corroded bells behind him, each toll releasing another wave of infection into the air. The defenders' courage dies before their bodies. By dawn, the hive is silent, its streets echo only with laughter and the rattle of flies. But the saddest tale comes from Barrowmark Bastion. Families had fled there, crowding inside the fortress chapel, barricading doors with furniture, praying that help would come. For days, they heard gunfire outside the battle, raging beyond the walls. Then came the silence. Only slow, dragging footsteps across the courtyard. The chapel doors cracked. The children were the first to see them bloated giants, armor corroded and dripping with filth. The Plague Marines didn't break down the walls. They simply waited. Hours turned into days. Hunger gnawed. Coughing spread. And the prayers grew quieter. When the Imperium finally retook Barrowmark weeks later, there were no survivors. Only poxwalkers, still wearing rosaries and charms of the faithful. The Plague Marines hadn't killed them with guns or blades. They'd killed them with time. Real-world parallels, the weight of inevitability. Plague Marines echo something deep in history, the terror of inevitability. Armies in the Middle Ages broke not from swords, but from disease spreading in their camps. Sieges lasted not days, but months, until hunger and plague killed more than the enemy ever could. Now imagine it in the far future. On Dravarn IV, Plague Marines besieged an Astra Militarum fortress. For weeks, the guard held firm until the water in the cisterns turned to sludge. Soldiers vomited black bile, their lungs filled with rot. By the time the fortress gates broke, half the garrison had already risen as poxwalkers. In the battlefields of Morton Pass, Space Marines of the Salamanders fought Plague Marines in open ground. The Salamanders struck hard, flames cleansing dozens, but the Plague Marines refused to fall. One, split nearly in half, kept firing until the Salamanders drowned him in fire. Even then, his laughter echoed from the smoke. This is why they terrify. Plague Marines are the living embodiment of attrition, and attrition always wins. Pop culture parallels. You've seen echoes of them in fiction. Resident Evil's Tyrant, the hulking monster that refuses to die. In the games, it takes rocket launchers, heavy weapons, and sheer firepower to finally bring one down. You can empty entire magazines into it, but it just keeps coming. That's the feeling Plague Marines give on the battlefield. Every shot feels like it isn't enough. Jason Voorhees from Friday the 13th. He doesn't run. He doesn't need to. He walks, slow and unstoppable. You can burn him, drown him, blast him apart, and still somehow he returns. Plague Marines are the same. Inevitability in motion, dead spaces necromorphs, twisted corpses reborn through infection, turning a starship into a cathedral of screaming flesh. Every limb you sever only births more horror. The terror isn't just what they are, it's the disease of faith that drives them. Like the necromorphs, Plague Marines transform everything they touch into a reflection of their own corruption. The walls rot, the air thickens, and death itself feels alive. When you hear the clank of ceramite boots echoing through the smoke, it's that same dead space dread knowing something is coming, something you can't kill, and it's already too late. They are horror in slow motion, not speed, not fury, but the nightmare you cannot outlast. The monster that keeps walking even after the movie should have ended, the disease that remembers your name. And here they are, the Plague Marines. Decay in armor, inevitability in flesh. They don't charge, they don't run, they don't stop. They simply walk forward and everything rots. T. Next time on Brush and Blood, we'll climb higher into the Death Guard's hierarchy with Typhus, the Herald of Nurgle. Did you know? Typhus, champion of Nurgle, carries the destroyer hive inside his own body, a living cloud of daemon insects that eat flesh, metal, and even souls. To fight him is to fight the swarm inside his skin. And when the Tyranids tried to consume a Death Guard-infested world, they recoiled. The hive mind found the plague-tainted biomass so corrupted and toxic that even its endless hunger hesitated. To Nurgle, even Tyranids are just another stomach waiting to turn sour. Tell me in the comments, would you rather hold a line against endless Plague Marines or face Typhus himself in single combat? Disclaimer: this episode is for entertainment purposes only. Lore or history details may not be exact. This is about fun storytelling and painting minis, not perfect accuracy.
Yes!
Not too bad.
Typhus is coming.